I'm your host Leo. Welcome to Taxi Research Institute. Last time, we introduced some small heartwarming stories left behind by Japanese taxi drivers. This time, I will share a few stories of touching moments by Japanese taxi drivers. Rainy night savior Yen. Mr. Matsumoto, a veteran driver of 72 years, has already been driving a taxi for 42 years. Last year during Tokyo's rainy season, late at night at the entrance of an alley in Shinjuku, he picked up a soaking wet high school girl. The girl, clutching a crumpled hospital address, got into the car and kept her head down shedding tears. Actually, her mother had suddenly been hospitalized for premature labor, and she was rushing from school to the hospital. However, she only had enough change for a subway station. Mr. Matsumoto saw her trembling hands through the rearview mirror. Without waiting for her to make an excuse, he gently pressed the meter pause button. Avoiding the most congested main roads, he chose the quiet back alleys he had driven for decades. 20 minutes later, the car arrived at the hospital entrance. The girl searched her pockets, blushed and said, "I only have 300 yen. Mr. Matsumoto waved his hand and said,
"Run along, young lady. Your mother right now needs you the most."
Then, from the dashboard, he took out the warm milk he had prepared for his wife, pressed it into her hand. For the next 3 full months, every day after school, the girl kept waiting for 30 minutes under the bus stop in front of the hospital, just to happen to run into Mr. Matsumoto's car and say thank you. And then, one night, she was finally able to get into that familiar old taxi. She handed him a drawing she had drawn herself. In the drawing, a white-haired driver in uniform was holding a transparent umbrella, standing beside a taxi, glowing with warm light. Now that drawing is still pasted on the dashboard lid of Mr. Matsumoto's passenger seat. When all the passengers who get into his car look up, they can see that warm yellow light. Japanese lessons while holding the steering wheel. Mr. Lousy, who returned to Japan from China, when he first started this job, his Japanese still had a Chinese accent. At first, when talking to customers, he was always afraid of being laughed at. Late one night at Yokohama port, he picked up an elderly Chinese Japanese who had just disembarked from a ship. The old man stood in the wind holding 2 large suitcases, coughing from the cold, and said,
"I haven't returned to Japan for decades. I have completely forgotten how to speak Japanese, and I don't know where my old house used to be."
Mr. Lousy, hearing the other person speak Chinese, instantly felt his eyes well up with tears, because he himself had spent most of his life in China, and had just returned. That was why he turned on the car's air conditioner, turned all the air vents toward the elderly person. While driving slowly through the old streets near the port, he accompanied the elderly person as they gradually recalled the appearance of the town back then. After searching for nearly 2 hours, finally, in an alley hidden behind a cherry blossom tree, they found the old house with a small garden from the elderly person's memory. On that day, the elderly person tried to pay twice the usual fare, but Mr. Lousy firmly refused to accept it. The two of them stood at the entrance of the garden and chatted in Chinese for about 30 minutes. After that, Mr. Lousy formed a certain habit. Whenever he met an elderly foreigner out on their own, he would always slow down, and even if it took a bit of a detour, he would help them find their destination.
He said that back when he had just returned to Japan, a kind taxi driver had helped him. So now it was his turn to pass on this warmth.
His increasingly fluent Japanese was half polished through conversations with passengers, and the other half was learned little by little late at night, after helping countless people find their homes. 30 minutes on a snowy day. Waiting for winter in Kyoto, fine snow is always dancing. One snowy morning, Tanaka, a 68-year-old driver, picked up an elderly woman heading to a nursing home. Clutching a cloth bundle, the elderly woman said
that today was the anniversary of her husband's death, and she was going to the nursing home to deliver homemade red bean buns. She worried that if she was late, the red bean buns would get cold.
When the car arrived at the entrance of the nursing home, the elderly woman suddenly said in a panic,
"I forgot my mobile phone with my husband's photo in it," as she was about to cry in anxiety. Mr. Tanaka,
seeing the snow outside getting heavier, had the elderly woman wait in the car and ran a 12-kilometer round trip through the accumulated snow. He went back to the elderly woman's house and fetched the mobile phone for her. When they returned to the nursing home again, the red bean buns were still slightly warm. On that day, Mr. Tanaka did not take any subsequent bookings and accompanied the elderly woman sitting in the memorial room of the nursing home for 20 minutes. He listened to many of her memories from when she was young, about how back then, together with her husband, she had taken a taxi to see the cherry blossoms. Ever since then, whenever it snowed, Mr. Tanaka would place another hot water bottle on the passenger seat.
He said, "Having driven a taxi all my life, I have carried countless passengers, but the most important thing is never the numbers displayed on the meter. It is that the people sitting next to me share the stories from the softest part of their hearts with me."